Feels like years since people have been excited about BC football. Well, 3 wins in a row, that'll do just the trick.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePick, the daily fantasy sports partner of Locked On. Got to check that out as soon as you get a chance to. All right, on today's show, positivity is starting to hit Chestnut Hill, and we're really ready to get excited about a BC team that has won 3 games in a row. Hey, folks, it's been a while since we've had anything to grasp on for this program. 2022 was a wash. Most of 2021 was a wash as well. This year, it's finally feeling like things are starting to swing in momentum. Jeff Hafley doesn't seem like he's on the hot seat anymore. You have a quarterback that is, as I said, the best that Boston College has had since Matt Ryan. That is 15 years ago. BC has not had a quarterback since like Thomas Castellanos, a guy that can change the game, a guy who can mask issues with a program, because let's be honest, this roster isn't perfect, but it doesn't matter. When you have a guy on 4th and 1 that can run into a wall, bounce off, and then run it for 45 yards, that gets you something to be excited about. When you have an offensive line that is the best that BC has had in the last 15 years, that gives you something to be excited about. When you finally have an identity to your team, when it's no longer, what's this team trying to do? When you know down now that this team is going to pound you and they're going to be physical and they're going to drag you into the fourth quarter where they're not going to give up. They're going to continue to be physical. That's the identity of your team. That gives you something to be excited about. Folks, we are looking at 5 more games. You have Yukon, Virginia Tech, at Syracuse, at Pitt, and Miami. And I'm telling you right now, BC could win all of these games. I'm not saying that I expect BC to, but I'm feeling like I see a lot on this team that gets me excited about the future of this program. For the first time since 2020, it feels like Jeff Hafley has this program trending in the right direction. Now you saw at the hockey game, when you looked at BC hockey, I said this on yesterday's episode, and you looked at that crowd and the fans and the students, man, the students were crazy for that game. You saw how a fan base could be supportive of a team that wins. Football is the number 1 sport at BC. As much as hockey is a great story, football is number 1. It just hasn't been activated in a while. And that man right there on your screen, if you're watching on YouTube, Thomas Castellanos, he is that deal. He is that. He's him. You know that phrase, he's him. He on Monday, here's his Monday. He was named co-ACC quarterback of the week, the first time ever, and absolutely not the last time. He was named along with Jordan Travis, who beat Duke in a big game on Saturday night. He was also named I think it was the Manning Award for one of the best quarterbacks of the week. Folks, this is his 6th start. 6. You know who else had 6 starts? John, what was his name? I can't even remember his name. The quarterback that was in 2015. I totally forgot his name. Oh man, why am I blanking? But you had him. You had Troy Flutie. You had Jeff Smith. These are all quarterbacks that had the same amount of starts as Thomas Castellanos. Sorry, John Faduli. He played 3 games, and that was it. But he was someone I'm thinking of, right? You get all these quarterbacks from now until until Matt Ryan. None of them can do what Thomas Castellanos can do. This offense is great. It is great right now. They're 14th in the country in rushing yards. Kai Robichaux was named running back of the week. Christian Mahogany named offensive lineman of the week. They were able to do against Georgia Tech what a good team should do, which is, yeah, they battled for 3 quarters, but they absolutely slammed the door on them in that fourth quarter. And that is a reason to get excited. They can do this to every other team on their schedule. They've got enough talent up front. And, they've got guys coming back. Trapilo is going to, only get healthier. You've got guys like Pat Garwo, who missed last week's game. He's going to get healthier. And the defense, Jeff Hafley said it on Monday's press conference. I know folks were worried about it, and I get it. They played a specific style of defense against Georgia Tech where they dared them to run the ball. And Georgia Tech, to their credit, they ran it for over 200 yards. But they held Haynes King, a guy that was top 25 in the nation, to 205 yards passing, under 50% throwing, and 3 interceptions. That is a reason to get excited. Over the last 3 games, since the UVA game, Jeff Hafley said this on Monday, BC has held opposing quarterbacks to 180 yards and 4 interceptions. That right there is something to get excited about. The defense is starting to come alive. And when you're playing a team like Yukon, when you're playing a team that's struggling like Syracuse, when you're playing a team like Pitt that's just been pitiful, no pun intended, you could see where BC could win these games. You see a team that no longer looks like a coach on the hot seat, but a team heading in the right direction, a team that's going to figure things out by the end of the season, a team that could go bowling. We were just weeks ago talking about BC just being a one-win team, but everything is clicking right now. They're a hot program, and the fan base, if you get behind them, you can make the difference in a game against Yukon. I saw Mitch Wolf tweeting about it. We did all these special things for the hockey team with the black and white out. They need to do something special for this football team on Saturday. I don't know if it's a gold out or something, but get behind them because this is a big game against Yukon, a team that you lost to for the first time forever last year. BC is energized. Jeff Hafley on Monday said, no, we don't need any motivation for this game. And he said it in a way that was not a slight at Yukon, but you could tell in the tone of his voice that beating Yukon is a very big deal. Saturday is going to be a big game. It's time to get excited. Alumni Stadium should be packed and it should be full of fans ready to root on this team because they're a fun team to watch. You got a quarterback that you're not going to get again for a long time. Watch Thomas Castellanos. Watch that offensive line and watch Yukon have no answer to any of it. In a moment, I'm going to tell you where BC could go from here. We'll look at all the opportunities that the Eagles have in front of themselves heading into the last 5 games of the season. Now, LinkedIn is the place to go if you are making a new hire, because every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Nothing is worse than opening a job and you have a position for a manager for your position, and you're looking and you find all these people and you bring them in to interview them and then realize they're not the right fit. LinkedIn can cut all of that out. Add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Then simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the quality candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black, and I am excited about where things are going for BC. Earlier this season, I had said that the Eagles were going to go 8-4. And within the first 4 games of this season, I looked like a complete idiot. And I will own that I look like an idiot. Because, they did not look good against NIU. They lost that game. They didn't look good against Holy Cross. And they played great. They held their own against Florida State, but made 18 penalties and they got smoked by Louisville. Well, things are starting to turn around. The season is trending upwards. They got 4 wins now. They've got 5 games to go. Could the Eagles go 9-3? I'm not crazy enough to say that, but it's something that could happen. It's not out of the realm of possibility, right? There's a less than 0% chance the BC goes 9-3. How crazy of a season ending would that be? If they go out there and they beat a Miami, they go out there and they beat Virginia Tech and Syracuse, they vanquish all those and they go, 6-2 in conference? You would then go from potentially firing Jeff Hafley to probably wanting to extend Jeff Hafley after a season like that. If you go 9-3, I want to read you something that I saw on Twitter that is absolutely crazy, but is absolutely something that could potentially happen. And that is what could go with the end of the season. So I want to give credit to Ferblogston, who is a big fan of our podcast. He's a crazy sicko and a huge Boston College fan. And he mapped out the potential path for BC to get to an ACC championship. Now, hold on. This is going to get crazy. So BC has to win out. They've got to win all their other games. I mean, they could lose against Yukon, which we don't even want to talk about that. But if they win out all their ACC games, that's the first thing that happens. UNC needs to lose, according to Ferblogston, 1 more game. Okay? Either against Georgia Tech, Clemson, Duke, or NC State. Duke is playing pretty well. It could happen. But you don't want that one to happen. You want them to lose to like a Clemson, because Clemson is basically gone at this point. Duke, you'll see in a second, they need some more things to happen. They're like one of the bigger ones. But the 2 bigger things that need to happen, Louisville needs to lose 2 more games. They need to lose to either Duke, Virginia Tech, or Miami. Again, could happen. But they need to beat Duke because you need to, so basically like a million different things have to happen in the right direction, right? So say Louisville loses to Virginia Tech and Miami. Then Duke needs to lose to either Louisville, UNC, Wake Forest, or Virginia, or Pitt. So that's your if all of those things happen, BC could make the ACC championship. And I don't read that as oh my gosh, BC's going to make the ACC championship, because that's insane. Like, for that to happen, the odds have got to be pretty low. But you know what? The odds aren't 0. And for the first time in forever, that's awesome. That's a cool thing, right? Like, there's still a chance that something special could happen. But say that doesn't happen. And most likely that will not. I mean, almost positively that won't happen. What could be some things that could happen? Well, if BC goes 8-4, you're going to have your best season since Jeff Jagodzinski was a head coach. Or sorry, since I think it was Frank Spaziani, but his first year as a head coach. You're going to go 8-4. You have the potential to be ranked. You are no longer the punching bag of the ACC. As Thomas Castellanos said in his press conference, they're no longer the laughingstock of the ACC. Boston College is back. Boston is back. Look out. I look at this team and I look at you end up with some big wins at the end of the season. All of a sudden, Boston College becomes a very attractive destination in the transfer portal. Remember when you see those teams like, Caleb Williams transferring to USC or Dylan Gabriel going to Oklahoma and these other programs, you see these big quarterbacks that go. What happens when that happens? Players that are good want to play with them. Well, guess what? BC has a player just like that players may want to come play with. So you may be able to get a good wide receiver to complement, Joseph Griffin and some of the other guys that'll be back next year. You may be able to get some offensive line. I mean, if you're an offensive lineman and you're watching the way that BC's playing right now, would you not want to play for them? I think you would. So you might get that. That's what I'm saying, folks. There's a tree of possibilities if things go right. These are all things that go positive. Now, the Boston College fan in yourself is probably going, well, AJ, that's great, but they may just go 6-6. Yeah, that may happen too. You know, there's a range of what could happen here. They could go 5-7. Oh man, I don't think that's going to happen. That means they beat Yukon and lose out. Do you really think that's going to happen? Way that you've watched Castellanos play and some of these other teams. I mean, as skeptical as a BC fan as you can be, yeah, that could happen, but more likely than not, they're going to get bowl eligible. So you're thinking six wins, 7 wins, 8 wins. Whatever that case is, at least it's positive. You get to a bowl game. You get to that next step. That's what BC needs right now. They really, really need 6 wins plus. And yes, I want to see them win 8 wins. But if you win 6, it'd be disappointing, but you're at least going in the right direction. You're trending in the right direction going into next year. And I know the folks are saying like, oh yeah, but this is the year. Next year is going to be harder. Sort of. You're playing Mizzou, which they're playing pretty well. Michigan State's a disaster. And then all the folks that are pointing to the ACC schedule, that's all going to get blown up anyway. So you don't have no clue who you're playing in conference next year because you're adding Stanford, SMU, and Cal. I'm just saying right now, there is a lot of potential for this team to go forward. And they're playing the easiest part of their schedule. They just need to make progress. If they continue to go, they made progress in the UVA game. They made progress in the Army game. They clearly made progress in the Georgia Tech game. Go out and take care of business against Yukon. Then see what happens against Virginia Tech. It feels like they're going to make that next step. And we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But right now I'm feeling good. And now in a moment, I want to get into the bowl projections. Where does some of these big time college football sites and some of the bigger media outlets have BC going if they do make a bowl game? You're going to want to hear where I've seen them going in just a moment. Now, Prize Picks is one of our best partners here. I love playing them because it's the most fun I've had, winning up to 25% times my money this football season. I just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place my entry. Testing my skills on Prize Picks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. It's so easy. This weekend, if you are a Pats fan, you could go in, you could find Mac Jones. Go with the over on his touchdown passes. I think he had 1. Boom, you win. So check it out. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege today. Check out what they have. They got college sports. They've got the Major League Baseball, hockey, whatever your jam is. Prize Picks has it, and you have the skills to win. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made so easy. This is Locked On BC. I am your host, AJ Black. And that right there, if you're on YouTube, is Nigel Tate. He's putting up the 4 because that's their 4th win. BC is now 2 wins away from a bowl game. Again, after the NIU loss, bowl eligibility seemed like a distant memory for the Eagles because they just looked like a bad football team. They don't look like a bad football team anymore. They've got a team with identity. They've got a team that's feeling themselves. They've got a team that's showing some confidence. And that's going to lead to some potential down the future. Now, bowl projections are always fun, and they always get fans talking because it's just one person's perspective. And there's a million different things that go into bowl projections, whether it's actual bowl selections, such as, has this team been here? Will they bring money? Will this other team bring more money? Will this team bring money? Hey, does that player look like he'd bring us money? Will that coach bring us money? Will this TV showing bring us money? You get my drift, right? So BC is probably one of the lesser attractive schools. But if they play themselves into it, there's nothing that the media companies can do to keep BC out of it. Because there's the BC, I think some folks even call it the BC rule, where a team with the same record or one more win or one less win or whatever can't jump another team just because a school wants them. So like Clemson can't get to a massive bowl if they win like 6 games over a 9-win BC team. That's just the way things roll, right? So where are some of the bowl projections that BC could possibly get to? I want to go over some of the ones I read. The first one from a couple different sources has the Pinstripe Bowl against Rutgers. Excuse me. So when I think of the Pinstripe Bowl, I think of the A.J. Dillon game. I think back to them playing on a frozen tundra with BC with terrible gear, and they were playing on basically an ice rink. I hate the Pinstripe Bowl because it's a miserable weather game. It's in New York in a baseball stadium, which I hate baseball stadium games, in the middle of the winter. I get it. I live closest to New York, so that's a positive, but for the fans, it's in the players, it's probably not the most attractive game. That being said, playing against Rutgers and getting a chance to get some revenge over last year could be a fun thing, right? So I give this a desirability rating of about a 5. I'll give that a 5. Then if you go to the Action Network, and Brett McMichael has the Duke Mayo Bowl versus Missouri. Missouri is a top 20 team right now. They just smoked South Carolina. They've got a wide receiver, one of the best in the country, but it is a higher ranked bowl. Obviously, the Duke Mayo Bowl is actually really nice. I think it's in North Carolina, so that's a positive. It's down in the South. It's against a team that you hate. I mean, if you remember the Missouri game a couple of years ago, Eli Drinkowitz made some nasty comments about New England. It's an SEC program. I'll give this a desirability rating of about an 8. I think an 8. I think this is probably one of my higher rated games I would like to see. Then CBS Sports has the Fenway Bowl versus South Carolina. Okay. Playing in Boston at the Fenway Bowl. Again, now it's playing in your backyard in a baseball stadium, obviously a negative. It's in the cold weather, a negative, against a team that's 4-4 in the AAC. That's not very good. They let up 56 points against FAU and UAB. Well, if you think it's nice to win a game, this would be a fun one for Boston College. If there's any other reason, no, it's not a fun, desirable game for you. It's not a fun, desirable game for the players because they're going literally down the street. It's not a fun, desirable opponent. I give this a desirability rating a 1. Everything about this sounds awful. ESPN. So they have 2 guys on ESPN, Kyle Bonagora and Mark Shablock. Shablock had Rutgers. We already talked about that. Kyle Bonagora says Tulane in the Military Bowl. Now, this would be a fun matchup for a couple of reasons. You get to play in Maryland. Remember, this was the bowl you were supposed to play against ECU a couple of years ago, but COVID happened. Against a team that has the 7th ranked run defense in the country. You're 14th in rushing. They're 7th in run defense. I like Tulane. They're a fun team. They got a fun coach. They're a fun program. Good matchup. They're not a Power 5 program, but they certainly play like it. I give this a desirability rating of a 6. Maryland still kind of stinks, and it's still going to be crappy weather, but I still think this is a better one than some of the other ones that we saw. All right. Our last one is the Sporting News. They put up their projection is the Serve Pro First Responders Bowl versus Iowa State. Now, this is the one that they played against Cincinnati a couple of years ago. They had lightning delays. Iowa State is one of the worst teams. I mean, they're a Power 5 program, yes. Their offense is offensive. They're horrible to watch. Their defense is fine. You're playing in a place that's known for thunderstorms. I think every BC fan has some post-traumatic stress disorder about playing anywhere where these thunderstorms have happened. It's better than others. I'll give this a desirability rating of a 4. I just don't care about seeing Iowa State. And I know this is a Boston College person saying this, but I want to see an exciting game. I don't want to see Iowa State. So that's my thoughts. Maybe you guys maybe you disagree. Maybe you have some bowls that you would rather see them play at, but those are just my 2 cents. On tomorrow's episode, I'm going to start diving into Yukon. I'll give you some of the things to look for, some of the things that we'll be talking about this week as we get ready for a big game where BC is a 12-point favorite. This is AJ Black. You can follow me on Twitter at AJ Black 247. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 network. please check me out there as well. We'll be back again tomorrow for a new episode, but thank you all for listening to Locked On Boston College, your team every day.